In this lesson, we'll be creating the simple, clean lower third. You can have access to this project file. It's called clean lower third, or you can build it from scratch following these instructions. So first, with most titles, I like to build out the entire title before I actually animate it. So let's go ahead and start a new composition. I'll just call this LT fill. That's my way of just writing out lower thirds, LT fill. Duration 5 seconds is fine. So first, let's create our text. So taking the text tool, choosing a font, I'm going to choose Helvetica, bold for my name, and I'm also going to choose all caps and make sure it's white. Then I'll just type in Phil Ebiner. Looks good. Now to change the size, let me select it, the selection tool, and then increase the size. Cool. Now let's add the other text. And so I'll take my text tool again, click down below Phil Ebiner, and put a little description. For lower thirds, this could be anything. This could be a website. This could be, a description of who you are. And usually I like to change up the size so that the description is smaller than the name. And I usually put it below, like so. Cool. Now let's add our background shape layers. Taking our rectangle tool, I'm going to change the color so that I can more easily see it, because white would just match with the text. Let's just pick something like blue for here. It's kind of gray blue. I like that. And now let me zoom in here to 100%, pressing spacebar to move my composition in place. And now let me just create this bar behind the Phil Ebiner text, or in front. But now I'll put this behind the Phil Ebiner text. While I create real world projects, I really like to keep things organized. So I'm going to rename the layers name, description, just by clicking onto the layer, description, and then pressing the return key on my keyboard, or the enter key. Name bar. That's what I'll call that one. I'll align everything in just a minute, but let me just create one more shape for behind the Video School Online text so that pops out a little bit more. You don't necessarily need that though. And I'll just make sure I'm not clicking any of these layers so that I create a brand new shape. Let me put it behind the description, and I'll also select both the description and this shape layer and put it behind the other text. And let me select that shape layer and make it a little bit darker so it stands out or stands apart. I'll rename this description bar. Cool. So now let's align things, and I could use the align panel over here in the right hand side to do so. So if I select the name and the name bar, I can vertically align so that it's aligned better. For the description bar and the description text, I will do horizontal alignment. So there's equal space on the left and the right for this one. And then I can select these and move it up or down depending on what I want to do. Cool, so that is the basics of setting up our text. We can see it there. We can select all of it and we can move it around depending on what we want. We can change the size. Next, what I want to do is pre-compose the different aspects of this graphic so that I can animate it separately. So if I go to my original one, I have the Phil Ebiner text pop on and then the Video School Online text pop down. And those are two separate pre-comps. So let me take the name bar and the name text, right click, pre-compose, and I'll call this name 2. So that's just the name. If I turn that on and off, you can see. And then same thing for the description and description bar, pre-compose, description 2. And the reason I do this is because once I animate this, which I'll be animating the pre-compositions, not the actual layers within the pre-comps, I can go back and change the name and description more easily. All right, so when I animate things, I like to put keyframes for the final position and then go back and animate how I want it to appear by going backwards in time and moving it off the screen. So let me go to 1 second. For both of these, I will select both and then press P on my keyboard to bring up position, setting a position keyframe by clicking the stopwatch icon right there. Now, if I go back in time, I can go back to the beginning or in the middle, depending on how fast I want it to go. I'm going to drag the name all the way to the left, okay? So this is cool. And then here, after the name comes on, I want it to start, the Video School Online text to start going down. But one issue I have is that I want my Video School Online text and the bar to be attached to this name. So whatever happens to the name happens to the description, and that's through parenting. And that's this column right here. If you don't see that parent column on your timeline, just click the toggle switches modes button down here if you see that. So for the description tool, I will drop down this parent column and attach it to name 2. Now whatever happens to name 2, which is this motion, happens to the description as well. So here, now I can take this keyframe, which I'm going to move over to the right, and then maybe go back right around here and drag the position up. Okay, so it's off the screen. So now the bar comes on and then the lower bar comes down. Looks pretty good, but we can make the movement and the motion look a little bit more dynamic by selecting all of these layers, right-clicking, going to Keyframe Assistant, and easy easing them. That's pretty good. Let's make it have a little bit more pop. With these keyframes selected, click the Graph Editor button. Make sure we're on the speed graph. Whoops, not the reference graph. I want the speed graph. I'm going to select all the keyframes by clicking and dragging over all of them here, and then click the handles to pull them to the right, and the other handles to pull them to the left. And now if I play through this, that's pretty darn cool. It has a little bit more pop. Let's add some motion blur to both layers and enable the motion blur for this composition with this button here. Let's render it out. And that's looking pretty darn cool. This last little graphic might come down a little bit too quickly, so let me draw this out right here. That's pretty cool. Maybe we want it to go a little bit earlier, so let's drag it back. So we want it to come popping down right there, so yeah, that looks pretty good. Awesome. So this is a clean lower third that now we can take and add to our other video projects. In the exporting and saving section of this class, I go over how you take graphics like this, the lower third graphics, and you work with them in other video projects. So if you're curious about that, check out that section. As I mentioned though before, you can go in and now easily change all of this stuff. So I can go into the name 2, change the name to Ashby Pup, who is my dog, who is sitting right next to me. I don't know if you can hear her. She's itching a little bit. So Ashby Pup, and maybe I want to move it to the right a little bit. And then for the description, I can change the description to my brand new dog. Maybe you want to change the spacing, or maybe you want to change the size of this shape by clicking and dragging in the sides. What I did there was just I double clicked the edge of the shape layer and brought it in. And now if we go back to our lower third, now we have this brand new graphic for Ashby Pup, my brand new dog. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll see you in another real world project.